Namaste, Hare Krishna. Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be learning about the manifestation of cult mentality, both the process and the warning signs. So a little bit of context before we get into the subject matter. Why am I making a video about a cult and cult mentality? Well, I myself am someone that was born into a very fundamentalist, evangelical Christian cult-like environment. I was stuck in that environment till I was about 16. And it led to a lot of pain and suffering in my life. And although I escaped that when I was younger, and I'm much older now, my late 20s, I am very much reminded of my childhood and the cult mentality I was surrounded with by many people today. I see a lot of people are driven to cult mentality, but instead of a religious context, I see many people in the political realm who've almost turned their politics into religion, and things have gotten to a very cult level, especially for people like me. I live in Oregon on the west coast of the USA, so places like Oregon, Washington, California have gotten pretty extreme and radical in the political sense in the last year, and it really reminds me of a lot of aspects of living in a cult when I was a kid. So I wanted to make this video to help other people understand what leads to cult mentality in the individual or in group settings, and what are the warning signs, what are the red flags, and what can you do to better protect yourself from people with bad intentions for you, or people that have an agenda, which includes taking advantage of you. So I hope this can help some of you avoid some crazy people and crazy groups in the future. So let's go ahead and begin. So I touched on this a little bit, but cult mentality is not just about religion, it's about the mind. So cult mentality can manifest anywhere and anytime and in anyone in any group. And while it does most often and probably most visibly manifest itself in a religious setting, most of us, we know about religious cults, it also occurs to a great degree in political dimensions and MLMs, or multi-level marketing, or pyramid investment schemes, certain extreme diet fads and lifestyles, many other areas of life, right? So it's not just religious folks or religious settings where people are driven to cult levels of mania or hysteria or harmful behavior towards themselves or others. So we'll go ahead and go on to the next slide here. So the path to cult mentality. How do things go from, a normal or kind of relaxed setting to a really extreme, crazy cult-like setting? And this is what I call reaching the boiling point, when things have gotten really crazy and you start to think like, where am I, or who are these people that I'm engaging with? Because things have really gotten out of hand. I call that, reaching the boiling point. So I've broken up this process into 3 stages of warm, hot, and boiling. And these are basically stages of engagement and dedication. So again, this could be someone that's super engaged and dedicated to a multi-level marketing scheme. It could be someone that's super dedicated to their political movement or revolutionary movement. It could be someone really engaged or dedicated to an individual, like a cult of personality. So it's not always, again, in the religious setting. So let's go ahead and look at our first stage here. So our first stage that we're going to look at is, I've just termed it as warm. And people in the warm category, generally, they have an approach which is very casual or nominal, superficial, or light or cultural. So I would say, a lot of people, I would say actually most mainstream religious people, whether they're Christians or Hindus or Buddhists or Muslims, a lot of mainstream religious people probably fall into the warm category, at least especially here in the United States. You'll hear a lot of Christian people or Jewish people, they're born into a Christian or Jewish family, and they're familiar with a verse here and there of their holy scriptures, but they're not super deeply dedicated and educated on the theology and all the rules and the regulations. So it's like being, Christian light. You wear your cross and you go to church every once in a while, and it's a more of a cultural identifier. And in no way do I mean that people in this category are any less valid. Like you're less of a Christian if you, fall into this category. But it's just to say that the level of engagement is a little bit more superficial than really serious, deep practitioners, people who take the religion very, very seriously. So if we look at the attitudes that a lot of people in the warm category, the attitudes that they have towards themselves and others tends to be pretty passive and neutral. So, a lot of times, whether it's religions, whether it's products, whether it's a company, whether it's a political idea, these people will, it'll be like, you do you, bro. We'll agree to disagree. I can, have my way about things and my belief, and you have your ways of going about, your beliefs as well. Or, you'll hear them say, if there's a disagreement, like, I'll go my way and you go yours. No hard feelings. So people in the warm category, you don't really have to worry about them too much. They're not really crazy. They have a very, a more casual, relaxed approach. Okay, we'll move on to the next level. So our next stage here we have is the hot stage. So the approach here is definitely more staunch. And people that fall into this category are typically, very orthodox, very strict, very serious about the ideology or the religion. They're not quite on the cult level yet, but as we look at the attitudes, typically, again, the way that they treat themselves and others, typically, when you look at people, the way they treat other people is usually indicative of how they treat themselves. So these things go hand in hand, the psychology of how these people think about their ideology or their religion, whatever is at hand here. So the attitude of the people that fall in the hot category is definitely more assertive, more pushy, more passive aggressive. It can also be like condescending or rude. And these are the people that are always telling you what you need to do, what you should do, what would be best for you. Maybe you have like a condescending, like super religious, family member in your household or in your family. And this uncle or this mom, this grandma, they're always telling everybody they need to go to church and they're sinning and they're going to go to hell for this. And, you really need to do this because the Bible says so. And some of these people take their belief so seriously that, like, if we look at our second example here under the attitude, like they'll say things like, if we don't see eye to eye on this, I'm not sure if we can be friends or family. They might not take it to the cult level where they will actually make good on their threat, where they will cut you out of their life. But they'll be really condescending and be like, they'll threaten you, if you don't see eye to eye on this, or if you don't take my opinion or my beliefs as the only way, if you don't accept my narrative, then I'm not sure that we can be friends. And then they can also be really condescending to people in their own groups as well. So not even of people outside of their group. For example, the very high and mighty self-righteous people that will say things like, oh, if you support gay marriage, then you're not a real Christian. Or if you don't pray 5 times a day, then you can't really call yourself a Muslim. Or, if you don't meet this certain quota and convert this amount of people into our corporation and sell all of these products, I really don't think you actually care about the cause or the product. These people are pretty passive aggressive and rude. And I'm sure you've probably encountered people that are trying to sell you an idea, that are trying to sell you a belief that they've gotten pretty impassioned and have tried to push that on you. So think in your own life of different examples of, different warm people in your life. Now that we've seen different hot people, maybe you have different friends or family that are examples of hot hot folks. So let's move on to the next stage here, which is boiling. And in this stage now, this is the cult level. The approach here is very dogmatic. It's blind faith. People are very OCD. And they are ruthless. They're ruthless towards themselves. They tend to be pretty manic and depressed because they're so strict with themselves, and then it makes them really strict towards others. So the attitudes that they have is very forceful, it's very authoritarian, it's very compulsive. These are the kind of people that it's that they're like, you have to do A, B, and C or else, depending on how bad the cult is. If this is a soft boil, it might just be if you work in a religious cult environment at your workplace, and say, I don't know, if you don't meet their particular religious standards, if you don't practice Christianity in this particular way, A, B, and C, then we're going to have to fire you. Or it could be really extreme, like if we take an example of an Islamic fundamentalist country in the Middle East, like Iran or something, like you have to be straight person. If you're gay, we will kill you. So you have to be straight or you die. So that would be, things are boiling over when your life is at stake. Another thing you'll see these people say, it's my way or the highway, or it's God's way or the highway, or we have to follow the rules and the regulations and the ideology that's been given to us. And this is the point where people really start tearing apart people within their own group as well. So you could be someone that's been very dedicated, very involved in the ideology or the group, but say you come to a point where you're starting to question things, or maybe you're starting to doubt the direction of where things are headed. Or maybe you have a criticism, and a very valid criticism. If you bring any of that up, you'll find a lot of other people in the group, they're very obsessed with self-policing. Automatically, even if you're a very high-standing person and considered ideologically pure, you will be attacked with, how dare you? And who are you to doubt? Who are you to question? Who are you to criticize? And you will be shamed for thinking outside of the box or thinking outside of the narrative, right? And again, so I want you to think of examples in your life. Have you ever had to deal with people on a hot level or on the boiling level where they've been very compulsive, very pushy, to the point where you thought your life might be in danger, or you might lose your job, or you might lose your family connections? This is a really bad place to be, the boiling place. And when we think about people that are on the boiling level, the really crazy, hysterical level, we need to think about what happens when water boils. The hotter the water boils, the quicker it evaporates, right? More heat is going to cause that water to boil much quicker and evaporate much quicker. This is kind of a metaphor for when folks in an in-group begin to cannibalize or purge folks within their own group, because purity standards and rules and regulations and hysteria has reached such a level that it's no longer enough to attack people outside of the group. We have to look at people within the group and find the traitors, find the spies, and find the anti-elements, whatever the group is. It's, if it's politics, you're an anti-revolutionary, or, you're an anti-Christian element, and you have to be, found out within the group. So this hysteria leads to what I've called this cannibalization, or eating your own. And this is when strict purity standards and over-policing leads to that self-consumption and self-destruction. So again, you are facing people that are really manic and in this OCD state that they have to enforce this ideology and this behavior on you. And if you don't follow suit, then people of your own group, if you're a Christian, but you're not being, the right kind of Christian, then you will be eaten alive by your own, by your superior, your preachers or your ministers of the people above you. So doubting, questioning, criticizing, or even being suspected of such, or, being even accused of such, usually results in being labeled a traitor or a disbeliever, someone lacking in faith or devotion for, God or the cause or the product or the people. Again, this isn't just religion. This could be anything, and the really important thing to notice about this is the boiling people. They're going to seek out the warm and the hot people, and they're going to force them to boil along with them, or they're going to face being shunned or cannibalized. So what do I mean by that? Let's use an example. So if we look at Afghanistan, they've had a lot of issues with Islamic terrorism. So lots of Islamic extremists on the boiling level. There's a lot of Muslim people, especially let's look at Muslim women. And they're very observant, and they cover and they say all of their prayers, and they're very observant, devoted Muslim women. But they want to be able to go to school, they want to be able to work, and they want to be treated like equal citizens. And when they've tried to do that, even if they're very, very, very observant, even if they're on the hot level, the people on the boiling level, the Taliban and the really extremist people, they don't want women working at all. They don't want women in school. So what do? They give them a chance. You have to boil. You have to change your standards. You're going to boil and you're going to become radicalized, or you're either going to be shunned. You're going to be shunned by your community, shunned by your family or friends, or you'll be cannibalized. We'll eat you alive, which could look like getting acid thrown in your face, or it could look like being executed or shot like Miss Malala. So this is really important to realize that it's important to familiarize yourself with the ideology, so that even if you're not dealing with boiling people yet, if you're dealing with a lot of hot people, that it's almost getting to the boiling level. Once those boiling people, the boiling level, if they've reached a certain capacity, a certain number, a certain percentage, they will force the folks in the warm and the hot to boil along with them. So this causes something which I cause the double down defense. And this happens irregardless of whether someone could be very heartfelt and sincere and 100% devoted to the cause or the ideology. They could believe it 100% themselves, or they could believe it's complete BS. They don't believe it at all, but for the sake of protecting their career or their reputation, or maybe even their life or the lives of their loved ones, they have to posture. So this is the double down defense. So regardless of where people actually stand ideologically and where they stand personally, the fear of being cannibalized by one's own kind leads to overt ideological posturing, virtue and value signaling, and then empty lip service in order to protect yourself, protect your job, your property, your societal position and reputation, your family, and so on. So once things reach this point, ideological obedience and adherence and submission are the only things that matter, and those outweigh logic, reality, facts, and truth. So once you reach this level, it's pretty scary. So that's why I wanted to share this message, so that people can be aware of what it takes to get to this level, what it looks like, and once you know what it looks like, how you can avoid it so you don't get pulled in as well. So final thoughts here. Practice self-awareness and mindfulness in order to avoid falling into egoic cult mentality. So when we usually look at people that are at a really crazy cult level of insanity, regardless of what it's about, usually they are really lacking a lot of self-awareness in that area. So it's really important for us to practice self-awareness in all the different dimensions of our life in a really holistic way, so that we can make sure that we ourselves aren't holding a cult mentality either. This is especially important in today's age, because I've seen a lot of people that are agnostic or atheistic, and they think because they're not pursuing a religion or they're not religious that they are they don't have to worry about falling into cults. But they can still be very intelligent people, but they fall into the same traps with multi-level marketing schemes. They fall into the same trap with political groups. Practice self-awareness, okay? Also, exercise caution and skepticism when people try to sell you their ideas, when people try to sell you their religion, their politics, contracts, or investment schemes. Be careful, and ask yourself, what's in it for you and what's in it for them? You got to ask yourself that much. Especially when it looks too good to be true. A lot of cults and cult mentality people will prey on very susceptible people, and they will present this very pretty package of something. And very slowly, they'll introduce them on the warm level. But once you're hooked in, they'll move it up to hot, and then they'll move it up to boiling. So in order to avoid that, really ask yourself before you really dedicate yourself to something, or before you buy into an idea or a thing, how much of you yourself do you have to sign away or hand over? Okay. And for some people, that's a very minimal commitment, a very minimal devotion. So for some people, they say, I'm a Christian, and for me that means, every week or maybe every other week, I'll go to church for 45 minutes, and that's the extent of their practice. There are other people, even let's use Christianity again, where they're on probably the really hot level. And, are you going to have to sign a contract where you're going to have to knock on doors and spread the message of Jehovah for 40 hours a week and convert a certain amount of people every month to the religion, or you're going to be shunned or thrown out, or there's going to be severe consequences? So ask yourself, how much of you, how much of your time, how much of your energy, how much of your mind, how much of your self-agency and your freedom and your liberty do you have to hand away? This is very important, okay? And the last thing that I would suggest is asking yourself, is there a return policy in this ideology or this religion? Read the fine print, okay? What are the consequences of leaving? Is this going to be, something that you can just try out, and if you don't like it, you can just return it, or you can just leave, no consequences? Or is this going to be something like the mafia, where once you're in, and the only way out, is, you're going to be taken out, or you'll take your own self out, but there's no way out alive. So make sure, I know that sounds silly, but a lot of people get involved in religion. They get involved in a lot of things, very naively, very carelessly at times, without understanding the consequences of leaving these groups or these ideologies. So with that, I think that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you learned something. I hope this kind of brought you some illumination and enlightenment around this topic of what kind of drives different people and different groups to go so crazy that they would harm themselves or harm other people or shun their own families. Again, I'm seeing so much of that with the political realm these days. So be very careful. Watch out for all the different ideas that people are trying to sell you or give you. Exercise caution, okay? And stay safe, all right? Have a great holiday season. Merry Christmas, and have an awesome, awesome new year and an auspicious, great start to 2021, okay? Bye-bye. Hare Krishna.